And that's what happened. And that was the same day that they then left the house and went to my daughter's school and went around to all the different students in school as the school administration was trying to get them out of there. There was many of them selling Sonia's mother kills babies and putting up wanted posters with my face on it saying wanted for the murder of children. And of course then the school principal calls and he's hysterical and my daughter's almost hysterical. She was calmer than he was, quite frankly. At the same time, 60 Minutes was on the phone to the clinic director wanting to know if there was any physician there that was willing to publicly talk about what was going on at the clinics. And she was telling the 60 Minutes people, no, there's nobody here that'll talk to you. And I'm saying, who's that? Yes, we need to talk to them. And so out of that became my movement forward and found that the more I speak about abortion rights, the better it is for all of us, not just for the patients, not just for you, not just for the country, but for us as providers and for me personally. I really feel it's important for me to speak out, and I'm at this point in my life trying to do whatever I can to help people find their voice. And that was one of the reasons for writing the book, of This Common Secret. When that 60 Minutes episode was going to air, I had to go tell my grandmother because she never, ever mixed 60 Minutes. She and her best friend Edith would get one beer of the week, and their big bowl of popcorn and sit down on Sunday night to watch 60 Minutes, and they always watched it. And I didn't know that if Grandma knew, in fact, I was sure Grandma didn't know that I was providing abortions. So I went to tell her the day before it aired, and I was terrified. I was terrified because I did not know what she was going to say or think. And I ended up sitting in her trailer house with Grandma sitting me down and holding my hand and patting on my hand over and over, and she started staring at the wall. She wouldn't look at me. She had tears running down her face, but she could not look at me. And she talked about being 16 years old and helping her best friend who had gotten pregnant, and they believe it was incest, helping her best friend end a pregnancy, because in those days it was very disastrous. And my grandmother and her sister, Violet, put something sharp up there, is how my grandmother described it. And then she described how the girl started bleeding, and how the blood wouldn't stop, and how they started packing her vagina with rags, and how they sat in the bed with her as she bled to death. So Grandma was patting my hand, and she'd finally turned to look at me, and she said, I know what you do, and I'm so proud of you. I'm glad you're doing abortion safe so that people don't kill their best friends like I did. Can you imagine? Every day when I go to work, I think about my grandma, and I think about the abortion I had and how I was treated. And I am so determined that women who come to my clinic are treated with respect, that they understand what's going on, that their questions are answered, that my staff is as on top of it as they can possibly be for each and every patient. We do not do patients in mass at my clinic. Patients come in one at a time, and when they walk in the door, they have all of our undivided attention until they're out the door and the next patient comes. So it's a very different model than what you'll see at some of the larger clinics. It's the way I work, it's the only way that I'm willing to work in providing abortions. Women have a harder time now obtaining an abortion, legal abortion, in the United States than they did 20 years ago. And there's more shame and guilt associated. Women talk in the clinic and they say, oh, I feel so bad, and this is such a terrible thing to do, and I don't want to kill my baby, but I've got 2 kids at home, or I don't want to be a mother, or whatever they decide. And I think we've talked about, where does this come from? Where does this rhetoric come from that has been weighted upon their shoulder? The Catholic Church and others have spent millions and millions of dollars to make us feel shameful, to silence us, to silence the abortion providers, to threaten us in any way that they possibly can. For God's sake, you can't get much more serious than killing doctors, bombing clinics. They now come out in front of the clinics with posters with the sights, the crosshairs, and abortion provider's face in it, and says, you're next. And stand in front of the clinics, and they get away with it. I mean, there's this kind of thing, and so the patients come in with a whole different feeling than they did 20 years ago. And I think that one of the things that we as a society, we as people who are supportive can do is just start talking about abortion and not make it this big silent secret. Anything that's a secret is perceived as being shameful or bad. And it is not shameful and bad for a woman to take control of her reproductive life. It is a very responsible thing to do. Thank you. We have to get the dialogue as loud as we can, in as many places as we can. If they even talk about, well, as they've talked about taking our rights away, and they are taking our rights away, the 24-hour waiting periods, the parental notification laws, the trap laws against the clinics to regulate the clinics in such a way that forces them to close down, they can't afford to stay open anymore. Why are we not on the streets? Why are we not on the streets protesting and angry? I mean, we need to do whatever we can to make sure that women feel empowered, that they have the right to be able to access all reproductive health care. I'm not talking about just abortion. Birth control. In Montana, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Montana. You guys here in New York have how many clinics and how close of a distance? If you want to get an abortion, it might be a little bit of an inconvenience to have to wait 2 days to get an appointment. I really don't know. But I know it's people here, many of you here don't really understand what's happening in the heart of the country. In all of Montana, there is one clinic in Helena, Montana that is open twice a month. They charge $1,000 for a first trimester abortion because they can. There is another clinic in Billings, Montana that is open a couple days a week, some weeks. It's often scheduled out, 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and it's the same price. There is a clinic, and that's towards the eastern part of the state. In the western part of the state, there's a clinic in Missoula, Montana, a wonderful clinic. It's a nonprofit clinic, but it also, is sometimes booked out in advance, and they will work with patients on payment. And then Susan Cahill is a woman who has a clinic in Kalispell, Montana, also an excellent facility, and she works with women. And then I'm in the middle of all of that. So it's 200 miles that way to get to a clinic, or 300 miles that way to get to a clinic,